So picture a scenario where you are um, completely and utterly out of options. Like the floor has entirely dropped out from underneath you.
Right, the worst case scenario.
Exactly. You've made the desperate phone calls, you've tried the financial life hacks, pulled every single string you have access to, and, well, absolutely nothing works.
Hmm.
It's that terrifying universal moment where, as our source text today describes it, the heavens do not respond to your calls, and the earth does not heed your cries.
I mean, that is the absolute definition of a helpless state. It's a profoundly uncomfortable place to even think about, mostly because we spend almost all of our waking hours, our careers, and, our mental energy trying to ensure we never have to go there.
Yeah, totally. And today we are opening a single, highly potent essay by an author named Shu Feng. It was written in January 2024, and it's titled Mindset and Actions to Maintain in a Helpless State.
Right. And the claim this text makes is that our entire modern response to those moments of absolute despair is fundamentally backwards.
It really is. So we are going to unpack the author's radical, deeply philosophical blueprint for not just surviving the darkest valleys of life, but, actually navigating a way out of them. Whether you're prepping for a meeting or just insanely curious, this framework might fundamentally change how you view your own struggles.
What stands out immediately to me is the author's refusal to offer empty platitudes.
Oh, yeah.
There's no hang in there, it gets better sentiment in this essay. Instead, the text forces us to question our most basic assumptions about control, starting with the really uncomfortable reality that absolutely no one is immune to powerlessness.
Well, we culturally treat success like a metaphysical shield, right?
Yeah.
We try to build these impenetrable fortresses out of 401ks, corner offices, multiple degrees, and social status.
Yeah, we operate under the assumption that if we just gather enough of those materials, we earn a VIP pass that lets us skip the tragedies of life.
But we don't. We really don't. We spend our whole lives trying to build a fortress of money or status. But the text argues that when the real storms hit, those fortresses are just made of paper.
Exactly. The author aggressively dismantles that assumption. The essay explicitly points out that status, wealth, and intellect offer zero ultimate protection against the fundamental human experience of helplessness.
Zero protection. I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow.
It is, and the text uses visceral historical realities to prove this. It reminds us that emperors, people with absolute unchecked mortal power, have hung themselves in despair.
Wow.
Presidents have faced assassination. Incredibly wealthy entrepreneurs, people who ostensibly won the game of capitalism, have jumped off buildings. Experts and professors have drowned themselves.
So ordinary people are obviously no exception.
No, not at all.
If an emperor's fortress can't keep the storm out, a middle-class paper fortress certainly isn't going to hold up.
Right.
We spent decades building this paper fortress, and when the existential winds actually howl, it just folds instantly.
Right.
Which begs the question, if the fortress is made of paper, why do we bother building it, and why are we so shocked when it falls?
Well, that shock is a byproduct of our deep-seated illusion of choice. We operate under the delusion that we are the sole architects of our destiny. But the text observes that human beings are essentially thrown into the world.
Thrown into the world. I like that phrasing.
Right. We don't start with a blank slate that we get to custom design. Every single person on Earth harbors dreams of a life filled with joy, happiness, freedom, and fulfillment. Yet, for thousands of years, only a microscopic fraction of humanity has ever truly achieved those aspirations in a lasting way.
Because of those uncontrollable starting conditions, I assume. I mean, the text lists things that are undeniable. You don't choose your parents.
No.
You don't choose the era or the political environment you're born into. You don't pick your physical appearance, your genetic predispositions, or your ethnicity. You simply arrive mid-story into a set of parameters you had no say in.
And because we don't choose those foundational elements, the author argues we are fundamentally powerless to change those initial circumstances. The text describes us as being constantly pushed by the tides of the times.
The tides of the times.
Yeah. We are moved from peaks to valleys, entirely swayed by the world and the shifting forces around us. The situations the author uses to illustrate this powerlessness are, well, they're extreme.
Like what? What kind of situations?
We are talking about undesirable helplessness. The text talks about loved ones being engulfed by landslides, floods coming in and completely submerging your fields in your home, wiping out your livelihood in an afternoon.
That's terrifying.
It really is. Or being struck by a severe illness when you have absolutely no one to care for you. being caught in an inescapable war zone, or facing debt that is compounded to become so unmanageable that you are physically and mentally exhausted just existing.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here on behalf of the listener because hearing all of this, it sounds like an incredibly bleak, depressing view of human existence.
It does sound heavy at first.
Right, it paints us as driftwood, just dead pieces of wood getting battered around by a hurricane with zero agency. If we are just at the mercy of the tides of the times, why try at all?
I get that reaction. But understanding the author's intent here is crucial. The goal isn't to depress the reader. The goal is to strip away the exhausting, anxiety-inducing illusion of control.
Oh, I see. So the illusion is the actual problem.
Exactly. Fighting against the reality that you are driftwood in a hurricane takes up all of your cognitive energy. Acknowledging that we are pushed from peaks to valleys isn't a punishment. It is a necessary clearing the deck first step.
Because you can't survive a massive storm if you're standing in the rain, spending all your energy arguing with the sky about why it shouldn't be raining.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So the transition from arguing with the sky to what we actually should do brings us to the author's radical antidote. When faced with this utter helplessness, the text insists on a very specific mindset.
And it's a very difficult mindset to adopt.
Oh, absolutely. It says we must not blame heaven, we must not blame earth, and we must not blame other people. Resentment is entirely forbidden.
Which goes against millions of years of evolutionary survival instincts. When we are threatened, our brains immediately want to identify the threat.
We want a scapegoat.
Exactly. We want to know whose fault this is so we can direct our anger at them. But the text argues that resentment will only accelerate your ruin.
Instead, it positions accepting fate as the absolute best mindset, and crucially, is the only way one can ever hope to change that fate.
Yes. The author even pushes past neutral acceptance and into gratitude. The specific quote from the text is, "Thanking heaven, earth, and the Creator may offer a chance of escape."
Okay, let's test that, because reading that on a page is one thing, living it is another. How exactly does a person feel gratitude when their house is submerged in a flood, or they are crushed by debt to the point of exhaustion?
It's a huge hurdle.
Right. I mean, for someone in the middle of a crisis, accepting fate sounds like a very philosophical way of just giving up. Like, isn't accepting fate just a fancy term for throwing in the towel?
That is the exact distinction the text hinges on. Acceptance is not surrender.
Okay, what's the difference?
Surrender means you abdicate all agency. You decide the floodwaters are too much and you let them drown you. Acceptance, on the other hand, means you look at the floodwaters, you acknowledge they are real, they are cold, and they are destroying your living room, and you stop wasting your mental energy being angry at the rain clouds.
So blame and resentment act as a cognitive poison. They trap you in the past, obsessing over what should have happened or who should have stopped the flood.
Exactly. Resentment guarantees you stay stuck. It burns the very physiological and mental energy you desperately need to find a way out.
While gratitude is positioned as a highly practical remedy, it forces a lens change, right?
Yes. It shifts your focus from the damage you cannot control to the present moment. By cultivating gratitude, even if it's just gratitude that you are still breathing in the midst of the disaster, you clear the mind of the paralyzing static of anger.
So it's the only psychological state from which you can actually map a route to survival. But asking someone to simply accept fate requires a massive shift in perspective.
It really does.
Which leads us to the text's deeply metaphysical explanation of why we must accept it. Even if you tell me resentment is poison, my brain still demands to know why this is happening to me. Does the author give us any framework to satisfy that human need for a reason?
The author absolutely does. The text gives two primary reasons for why you must accept fate. The first is highly pragmatic. There's simply no alternative.
Right. You cannot rewind time. The flood is already here.
Exactly. But the second reason is where the philosophy deepens into what we could call a cosmic ledger. The text states that everything is self-created.
Everything is self-created. That is an incredibly heavy phrase.
It is. The essay explicitly claims that your current helpless situation is the result of choices made over multiple lifetimes, as well as the outcome of your own haphazard and misguided efforts in this current life.
Wait, hold on. Multiple lifetimes.
That's what the text argues, yes.
For the listener who is incredibly grounded in science, the pragmatist who lives strictly in the present moment, they might check out right here. Do they have to adopt a totally new religious framework of reincarnation to use this text? Or is there a secular way to view this cosmic ledger?
It functions brilliantly as a mental model, regardless of your metaphysical beliefs. The text asserts that when we explore the universe, we find it follows strict laws and principles. Nothing is accidental or random.
Okay, so everything that happens is inevitable.
Precisely. The author writes that heaven does not spare anyone nor unjustly harm anyone. If you view that literally, it's a statement on reincarnation and karma. If you view it secularly, it's a framework of radical legibility. It's a psychological tool to completely eliminate the concept of victimhood.
It's like realizing you aren't the victim of a rigged board game. Instead, you're playing a game where you just forgot that you were the one who wrote the rules and set up the board a long time ago.
That's a perfect analogy. When you realize you wrote the rules, you stop yelling at the dice.
Yeah, because you realize that flipping the board doesn't change the mechanics of the game.
Right. By framing tragedy not as random cruelty, but as a strict law of cause and effect, the text paradoxically returns immense power to the individual.
It sounds like the ultimate blame game at first, like, oh, you brought this flood on yourself. But it actually shifts the burden from the uncontrollable universe back to your own agency.
Exactly. If the universe is chaotic, random, and cruel, you are forever a victim waiting for the next random strike. You have no agency.
But if your situation is the inevitable result of your own choices, efforts, and the strict laws of consequence, then it stands to reason that your future situation will be the inevitable result of your current choices.
Yes. Understanding this lack of randomness, as the author states, allows us to see the path our lives should take. It transforms a chaotic, terrifying universe into a legible system of actions and consequences.
Okay, so once the chaos is removed and you accept the cosmic ledger, the text transitions away from philosophy entirely and gives us a very rigid, step-by-step formula for escape.
It does. It provides a highly practical roadmap out of the abyss, broken down into 4 sequential actions.
What's the first step?
The first step is what we just discussed. Accept fate without blaming heaven, earth, or others. This is the triage stage. You have to stop the bleeding.
And blame is the bleeding of your mental resources.
Exactly. You must acknowledge the reality of the disaster without pointing fingers.
Which leads to step 2, which pushes the difficulty even higher. Maintain a calm, peaceful, and even joyful mindset.
Yes, the text suggests you should joyfully accept reality.
Joyfully.
Yeah.
How do you realistically jump from bleeding out in a crisis to a state of calm, joyful peace?
It ties back to your board game analogy. The joy doesn't come from the pain of the crisis. The joy comes from the relief of understanding the rules.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. The moment you accept that the situation is a consequence of strict universal laws, the panic of why me dissolves. The calmness is the natural byproduct of accepting reality exactly as it is.
Rather than fighting the exhaustion of how it ought to be,
Yeah.
it centers your nervous system.
Exactly. Which sets the stage for step 3. Keep a heart full of gratitude, entirely free from resentment.
So you actively cultivate thankfulness. Maybe it's gratitude for the clarity the crisis has brought, or gratitude for the universal laws that ensure your actions actually matter.
It is a deliberate lens change. And this deliberate lens change is absolutely vital for the final step.
Step 4, the execution phase.
Yes. The text says, do your utmost to find a way out of the helpless situation. This definitively proves the philosophy is not about passive resignation.
It is deeply, intensely active. I really want to emphasize the word action here. Action isn't panic. Action is methodical movement born from acceptance.
Very true.
It's not just sitting on your couch smiling joyfully while a literal flood washes your house away. The internal mindset, the calmness, the lack of blame, the gratitude, that's just the launch pad.
Yes, it is the solid ground you construct in your mind so that your external behavior is actually effective. You do your utmost, you try everything.
And there's a promise attached to this, right?
There is. The author offers a profound promise for those who follow this specific sequence. The text states that in this way, heaven may guide you out of your troubles or even send someone to help you.
By removing the blinding static of your own anger and the tears of self-pity, you suddenly become capable of seeing the data in front of you.
You can actually recognize the hidden path out of the valley or see the outstretched hand of someone offering help because you aren't so consumed by the unfairness of it all.
Synthesizing all of this, Sui Feng has provided a blueprint that demands an incredibly high level of emotional discipline: acceptance, gratitude, and action.
Those are the 3 core pillars to maintain when you find yourself in a state of utter helplessness.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want you, the listener, to evaluate your own paper fortresses. The hard, uncomfortable truth of this essay is that the floods will come.
They are inevitable.
The existential storms, the impossible debts, The betrayals, the health crises, they are all part of the inescapable tides of the times. We have absolutely no control over the external events that will strike us.
But we have absolute control over whether we meet them with resentment or responsibility. Resentment guarantees you sink with the ship, while responsibility and gratitude build the only viable raft for escape.
I want to leave you with a final, lingering question to mull over as you navigate whatever challenges are waiting for you today. We talked extensively about the cosmic ledger, the idea that our present circumstances are the direct result of our past actions and mindset.
Right.
If, as the text suggests, our current moments of absolute helplessness are the inevitable result of choices we've made in the past, what future state of helplessness are your current reactions building right now?
It really reframes every minor annoyance and major crisis as a building block, doesn't it? Every reaction you have today is a seed you are planting for a future circumstance.
Exactly. If you were responding to today's minor setbacks with blame, anger, and a demand to know why me, you might be setting up the board for tomorrow's insurmountable trap.
But if you can meet today's floods with acceptance, gratitude, and methodical action, you are building a fundamentally different future.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take this new perspective into whatever challenges you face today. Look at the storms in your own life. And remember, even when the heavens do not respond to your calls, you still retain the ultimate power to choose how you wait for the storm to pass.